Welcome to today's deep dive. We've got a lot of ground to cover, but I just want to start with something that happened on Monday.
Oh, right, the situation in Hungary.
Yeah, exactly. Because on Monday, Hungary's political borders looked, completely set in stone. Permanently. But then by Tuesday, a 16-year regime was effectively just over. Peter Magyar's Tisza party won the parliamentary election in this absolute landslide.
Which was a massive shock to basically everyone.
Right. And just to report the facts here, impartially, Viktor Orban conceded. He called it a painful but unambiguous defeat.
Yeah.
And there were celebrations all over Budapest.
I mean, it is just a profound demonstration of how fast a deeply entrenched status quo can just dissolve.
Yeah.
You have the system that operates with absolute visual stability for over a decade and a half. And the consensus is just, well, the architecture is permanent until the exact moment it isn't.
Which is such a good way to frame it.
Yeah.
Because that exact same illusion of permanence is happening right now on your desktop.
Oh, absolutely.
We look at the tools we use, the workflows we've built, the massive tech companies supplying them, and we assume the map is drawn in thick ink. But the ground is shifting overnight. So our mission today is figuring out how to spot those sudden seismic shifts before they happen.
Right, and more importantly, how to architect your own systems so you don't get buried when the landscape inevitably changes. Because if you wait for the official maps to be redrawn, you are already way too late.
Yeah, totally.
In tech, when established systems are about to fracture, you have to watch where the builders are moving. You look at the data the crowd is generating before the official PR announcements are even drafted.
Which brings us straight to the prediction markets.
Yeah.
Specifically, looking at the data on Manifold for April.
The crowd's crystal ball.
Right. The crowd is currently pricing in an 82% probability that a DeepSeek V4 variant is dropping before April 30th.
Wow.
And right next to it, an 81% probability for a GPT 5.5 or 5.x variant shipping in that exact same window.
That is a massive cluster.
Oh, and the board is completely lit up with secondary models, too. You've got Minimax M3 sitting at 59%, Kimi K3 at 38%, and a handful of Claude Opus variants just hovering around 35%.
So the market is heavily anticipating this really condensed traffic jam of frontier capability, all bottlenecked in a single month.
Wait, hold on. I have to challenge the premise here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Why are we reading a financial heat map on Manifold when DeepSeek and OpenAI have perfectly good PR departments? Like, if an AI lab is shipping a frontier model, they don't hide it, right? They put out a massive blog post. Why not just wait for the press release?
Well, you have to look at the incentive structures. Press releases are, by definition, heavily managed. They're trailing indicators.
Right.
By the time that blog post goes live, the insider ecosystem has already repositioned. Prediction markets, on the other hand, they aggregate these localized anomalies.
What do you mean by anomalies, like rumors?
Not just rumors. Think about it like this. Say a data center engineer notices a massive, unexplained spike in cluster allocation. Or a safety tester suddenly gets a new, highly specific set of red teaming guidelines.
Oh, I see.
Right? They are bound by strict NDAs, so they can't tweet about it, but they can legally take a financial position on a prediction platform.
Oh, wow. So you aren't just reading gossip. You're looking at the aggregate financial footprint of insider knowledge.
Exactly. It is a financial heat map of developer gossip. If you wait for the press release, you're just reacting to the earthquake. But if you watch the order flow on these markets, you are literally watching the tectonic plates grind together before the surface breaks.
Okay, that completely reframes it for me. We're essentially watching where the water pipes are vibrating before the faucet actually turns on.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
And we are already seeing this relentless pace of release happen at the smaller scale, right? Like OpenAI just dropped the GPT 5.4 mini and nano models.
Right, and the timing of those nano drops is critical context for this broader shift. Because they aren't just smaller versions of a big model for the sake of having a smaller version.
No, not at all.
They represent a fundamental shift in the economics of compute. They are highly efficient, heavily quantized models that let developers finally match the capability they need to the exact cost they can afford.
I mean, you don't need a massive 10 trillion parameter frontier model that costs dollars per query just to do, like, simple data sorting or basic text extraction in a background app.
Precisely. Using GPT-5 to sort a spreadsheet is like using a sledgehammer to drive a thumbtack.
Right.
I mean, it works, but the unit economics are terrible.
And the sheer volume of what is available right now is just staggering. Hugging Face just released their Spring 2026 open source landscape report, and they are actively tracking over 274 different models.
That's incredible.
Throughout March, they were logging roughly one new model release per day, which introduces a massive cognitive load. For the last 3 years, the main question for anyone building in this space was basically, what can the AI actually do?
Right, the capability bottleneck, like, could it write Python? Could it hold context over a long document?
Exactly, but that bottleneck is completely gone now. The capability is undeniably there. The bottleneck has violently shifted from capability to selection, and you see this everywhere, especially in the AI agent ecosystem. Right now, we are looking at over 120 different AI agent tools spread across 11 distinct categories.
It's a fragmentation nightmare.
It really is. You have major proprietary labs building out these massive walled garden frameworks, and simultaneously you have no-code platforms like N8N letting non-developers wire up wildly sophisticated autonomous workflows.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword. I mean, you have this amazing democratization of engineering power, but it has created a massive technical debt challenge for anyone trying to maintain a stable production system.
Yeah, it's like walking into a hardware store to buy a power drill, and instead of a neatly organized aisle with clear labels, someone has just dumped 120 different types of drills into a massive pile on the floor.
That is exactly what it feels like.
Right. Yes, you have more power available than ever before, but if you're an engineering lead, how do you manage your team just grabbing random tools from the pile?
Well, you can't. Having 120 tools is functionally useless if you don't understand the underlying architecture of the problem you are trying to solve. You can't just default to whatever launched on Product Hunt yesterday.
No, definitely not.
Because the technical debt of picking an incompatible agent framework right now, it will paralyze a development team within 6 months.
So how do you actually vet the pile? How do you know which tool to pick up? This is where I think the Gauntlet AI framework is really stepping in, and their approach is just incredibly pragmatic.
Yeah, they have that live session coming up, right?
Yep, on April 15th.
Yeah.
It's led by their Director of Learning, Byron Mackay, and it specifically attacks this selection bottleneck.
And what stands out about Mackay's curriculum is that it bypasses the philosophical theory entirely.
Right. No high-level fluff.
Exactly. It is strictly designed for production engineers who actually have to keep systems running. They are teaching a precise methodology for deciding when, for example, you should reach for a tool like Cursor versus when you need to utilize Claude Code.
Let's actually dive into the mechanics of that specific choice, because I think it perfectly illustrates the problem. Cursor and Claude Code both essentially help you write software with AI. So why does it matter which one you use?
Because under the hood, they represent entirely different operational paradigms. Cursor is an integrated development environment. It embeds directly into your syntax tree.
Right.
It uses retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, to constantly scan your local code base so it can provide line-by-line real-time autocomplete as you type. It is deeply intimate with your immediate working context.
So it's like a co-pilot sitting in the passenger seat watching the road with you.
Yes, exactly. Claude Code, however, operates at the terminal level. It's a CLI tool. It isn't watching you type. It acts as a high-level orchestrator. You ask it to refactor an entire module or track down a multi-file bug, and it operates autonomously across your file system to execute that broader architectural command.
So it's more like a project manager you send off to do a task.
Precisely. And Mackay's session is focused on teaching engineers this exact distinction. You have to match the model's architecture to the specific task, and critically, you have to structure these agent workflows without adding unnecessary layers of abstraction.
Because complexity is the enemy of uptime, right?
Right.
If you stack too many autonomous agents on top of each other without understanding their underlying mechanisms, your workflow just becomes completely brittle. And this philosophy of matching the model to the specific task perfectly explains the new MAI suite Microsoft just launched on Azure Foundry. Have you looked at this?
Oh, the MAI suite is the logical endpoint of those GPT 5.4 nanodrops we discussed earlier. Microsoft has recognized that developers don't want monoliths. They want specialized, hyper-efficient micromodels.
Yeah, and the pricing is insane. Look at MEI Transcribe 1. It costs just 36 cents per hour of compute to run.
36 cents an hour is essentially free compute.
Right. How are they getting the cost that low?
By mercilessly stripping away anything that isn't related to transcription, they aren't using a trillion-parameter model that knows how to write a sonnet or code in C++ just to transcribe a phone call.
Yeah, that would be the sledgehammer again.
Exactly. MAI Transcribe 1 is a heavily quantized, narrow model specifically optimized for singular audio extraction. And they include human-centric safety features directly at the API level, so developers don't have to build their own compliance wrappers.
And they rolled out MAI Voice 1 and MAI Image 2 alongside it, which completely changes the math for a developer.
It really does.
Because when the underlying cost of high-fidelity voice synthesis or transcription drops to literally pennies an hour, it suddenly becomes viable to build micro-agents for incredibly niche problems.
Which is exactly what the open source community is doing right now. These cheap, hyper-specialized models are the raw materials powering that 120 tool ecosystem we were talking about.
So let's bring this down to the desktop and look at how this architecture is actually manifesting in real-world tools that you can use today. Let's start with Sync 3.
Oh, Sync 3 is a perfect example of a specialized model targeting a very specific friction point.
Yeah, it tackles video localization, which has historically been just a massive logistical nightmare. Like if you have a corporate training video recorded in English and you want to deploy it to your team in Japan, your options were terrible. You either use subtitles, which degrades engagement, or you dub a voiceover, which creates that jarring disconnect where the speaker's lips don't match the audio, or you spend thousands of dollars to completely reshoot the video with a new actor.
But Sync 3 eliminates all that, and what's interesting is how it actually achieves it. You upload the original English video and provide the translated Japanese audio track, but it isn't just blurring the mouth or doing a cheap deepfake. No, it is actually mapping phonemes, the distinct sounds of the new language, and then utilizing an image generation model to dynamically alter the 3D visual mesh of the speaker's face overlaid on the 2D video.
Wait, really? It alters the 3D mesh?
Yeah, it re-renders the jaw and lip movements frame by frame to physically match the Japanese audio track in real time.
That is wild. The barrier to globalizing visual content just completely vanished. You basically have a universal translator that adjusts your physical facial geometry.
It's incredible.
Okay, here is another tool built on this microagent philosophy that solves an incredibly mundane but universal pain point. Baskio.
Oh yes, Baskio. It attacks the data formatting bottleneck. Taking raw spreadsheet data and turning it into a polished presentation deck is universally despised because it is purely manual pipelining.
We all know the workflow. You download a massive CSV from your analytics dashboard. You open it in Excel, you spend hours building pivot tables, filtering noises.
Just agonizing over it.
Yeah, and then you painstakingly copy and paste those charts into PowerPoint, trying to align text boxes so it looks presentable for a board meeting.
Historically, software tried to solve this with templates, but templates are rigid. They don't understand context. Baskio fundamentally changes the mechanism.
How so?
When you upload that CSV or connect to Google Sheet, it uses a lightweight language model to parse the semantic relationships between the columns.
So if I type a prompt like, show me the quarter-over-quarter growth in our European markets, highlighting the supply chain efficiencies, it isn't just running a keyword search for the word Europe.
Exactly. It evaluates the raw data and generates a logical narrative arc in a JSON format. It understands that a drop in logistics costs correlates to the supply chain efficiency you asked for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and once it structures that narrative in JSON, it compiles that directly into the XML structure of a slide deck. In seconds, it outputs a natively formatted presentation with the correct charts highlighting the specific data deltas that support your story.
It turns raw numbers into a finished argument by understanding the intent of the narrative. That is hours of manual pipelining entirely bypassed.
Completely bypassed.
And speaking of bypassing the manual pipeline, let's look at how agents are hooking into external APIs with Carly AI.
Carly AI is taking the concept of operational execution and baking it directly into the most ubiquitous, frictionless interface we have, your email inbox.
Right. Think about the current friction of operations. You log into a CRM to update a client file. You log into a scheduling app to book a meeting. You log into a project management board to move a ticket. You're just bouncing between a dozen different SaaS dashboards all day.
Yeah.
Carly AI acts as an execution layer. You just forward an email to Carly with a natural language command.
Like what?
Something like, Carly, schedule a follow-up with this client for next Tuesday and update their file to reflect the new pricing tier.
And under the hood, Carly is taking that unstructured text, extracting the intent, and pinging the respective APIs of your CRM and your calendar directly.
Without you doing anything else.
Right, it handles the authentication and the routing. You don't need to set up complex, brittle trigger paths in Zapier anymore. The language model acts as a dynamic router for the API calls.
And if we scale that concept of dynamic interaction up to customer-facing systems, you get tools like Mina. Mina is deploying AI-powered conversational agents designed specifically for multi-turn dialogue.
Which is a crucial distinction. We are all used to those incredibly frustrating, rigid customer service chatbots that just run you through a predefined decision tree.
Oh, yes.
If you ask a question slightly outside their programmed parameters, they just break and offer to connect you to a human.
Right, they're essentially just interactive FAQ pages.
Exactly, because they lack state management. Mina utilizes these specialized models to maintain the context window over a long, multi-turn conversation.
Oh, so it actually remembers what you said 5 minutes ago.
Yes. It adapts dynamically to industry-specific terminology and regulatory compliance requirements, whether it's parsing HIPAA constraints in healthcare or handling dynamic inventory routing in e-commerce. It holds a compounding conversation instead of just answering single-shot queries.
So when you stack all of this up, the trajectory becomes incredibly clear. The crowd in the prediction markets is signaling that the underlying models are about to get exponentially more powerful with drops like DeepSeek V4. But simultaneously, tools like Microsoft's MAI suite are proving that compute is becoming modular and incredibly cheap.
And that modularity is fueling the explosion of the 120-plus agent tools we are seeing right now. Tools like Sync3, Baskio, and Carly AI exist because engineers are finally figuring out how to stitch these hyper-specific models together.
Right, and frameworks like Gauntlet's upcoming session are providing the actual blueprints for how to safely implement those tools in the real world without collapsing your own infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly.
The barrier to building complex autonomous workflows has never been lower. You do not need to be a senior machine learning engineer reading academic papers all day to leverage this stuff.
No, you just need to act with structural intention. When you understand the underlying mechanics, when you realize that an agent is just translating intent into an API call or parsing a CSV into a JSON narrative, the 120-tool ecosystem stops looking like a fragmented pile of drills.
Right, it starts looking like a highly specialized assembly line.
Exactly. You are no longer reacting to the shifting ground. You are actively selecting the tools to build the new foundation.
Which leaves us with the final question I want you to mull over today. We've looked at the mechanics of how these microagents actually work. If tools like Baskio can automatically analyze the data and generate the XML for a polished presentation deck, and Carly AI can parse your intent to execute complex operational routing across your software stack.
Yeah.
What happens to the modern workplace?
Well, I mean, it forces a total reevaluation of human capital.
Exactly. Because for the last 20 years, a massive portion of white-collar work has simply been manual pipelining, knowing how to format the spreadsheet, knowing how to route the data between the CRM and the calendar.
Right, the how.
But if the specialized agent handles the how flawlessly, the only valuable professional skill left is knowing what needs to be done and why. When the thick black ink on the map washes away overnight, the most critical person in the room isn't the one who knows how to draw the lines. It's the one who knows how to clearly describe the narrative of where we need to go next.